time for Casey Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice. We're telling the stories of Kansas City nonprofits and the people behind them. Casey Cares is the intersection of the nonprofit and profit communities, making Kansas City a better place to live, work, and play. This Casey Cares segment is brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation, www.kaufman.org. I'm Ruth Baum-Biggest. Fighting addiction is not an easy battle, but it's one that Welcome House has taken since its incorporation in 1971. With the approach of sobriety with dignity, Welcome House looks to help the whole person heal and move on with their life. Based on a 12-step recovery and offering a variety of options for those facing addiction to reach sobriety, Welcome House has entered a new era with its state-of-the-art recovery center. Well, joining us to update everything going on at this impactful nonprofit is President and CEO Jamie Boyle. Welcome.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you so much for having me.
You betcha. Well, in full disclosure, Jamie has been a guest with us, but it's been quite some time, and we thought it was a great time to catch up. But for a few new listeners, audience members, give us your take on Welcome House. You're in the middle. So share that with us if you would.
Sure. And thank you again for the opportunity. I enjoy speaking with you and being on the show. And certainly we love raising awareness about Welcome House and the important work we do in our mission here. I got involved, as you may recall from my prior appearance on the show, but I got involved seeking services from the organization Welcome House. So I'm in long-term recovery. I got sober through accessing the Welcome House and living at the Welcome House for a period of time. And then after I was out sort of doing my own thing, I volunteered with the organization one night a week, and then happened to be given an opportunity to join the staff, and sort of the rest is history. But what I can share in part through my professional experience and also personal experience with the Welcome House is that what makes Welcome House so special is a combination of a couple of things. And one sort of subset of those things is that at Welcome House, you get the right message, hopefully at the right point in your life, delivered by the right people. So what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is, addiction and alcoholism are progressive and fatal, and you often hear people talk about bottoms. My experience was bottoms for me kept getting lower and lower. And in fact, I couldn't really adjust my standard of living fast enough to keep up, So by the time I got to the Welcome House, not unlike a lot of our men, I was exhausted. In my personal experience, in case I had lost everything, homes, cars, jobs. I hadn't worked for a significant amount of time. And, I really had nothing except for, fortunately, I still had my life. And, when I encountered the program. And so I was at sort of that right place, where I had proven to myself over and over and over again, all of my loved ones and my support system now were kind of, doing those things at arm's length, if you will, because they'd tried everything, and I was ready, ready to change my life. And when I got to Welcome House, what I encountered was a fellowship of guys who were in my same experience, trying to figure out and do what I was trying to figure out, which was address this alcoholism and addiction, this disease that I had that had just, repeatedly beat me over and over and over again. I just couldn't seem to whip it. And not only that, the staff and the people engaged at Welcome House were also people living in long-term recovery who had been able to do what I had tried so desperately to do over and over again, which was put together some length of sobriety. For example, if a man is living under a bridge for the last 2 or 3 months, 4 or 5 blocks from here, and one morning he wakes up and says, enough is enough. I want to change my life. I need some help. all he has to do is show up at the welcome house. And if he meets a couple of very minimal requirements, meaning he's a man 21 years and older, he has an acknowledged substance use disorder, alcoholism, and addiction that he expresses a sincere desire to address, and he's not a registered sex offender. If he meets those minimum requirements and we
Mhm.
have a bed, we bring him into our program. And so, that's just a phenomenal service to this community, to certainly
Right.
to those men, but also to their families and loved ones, their children, to the broader community as a whole. I don't think anybody would not understand, this description wherever I go in Kansas City now, on every single corner, in areas that are wooded and between overpasses and underpasses, there's a substantial homeless population in Kansas City. In fact, it's grown in ways I would have never believed over the last probably decade and a half. And, we know a substantial or significant issue driving those individuals' situations is addiction and substance use disorder in combination with mental health, but certainly substance use disorder and addiction is sort of fueling those populations where people getting to those points in their life. And so, for a man who's 21 years and older in that situation, no, that's not great. Clearly, it's not great. But you know what is great? That there's a welcome house here in Kansas City in this community that sole mission is to help men get out of that scenario and to rebuild their lives and to go on and live as productive people, And so I benefited from it. Over 600, between 670 men, 600 and 700 men this year will benefit from it through our new facility. And so, wonderful, wonderful organization for Kansas City.
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing a little bit of your own personal story.
Sure.
Uh, Not everybody's willing to do so. So grateful for you doing that. And I want to go dig deeper into the program and the new
Yeah.
building. We don't want to lose that. But I did want to ask a question that I think would help those who run nonprofits or engage in other nonprofits. How impactful or how critical do you think it is to have a lived experience in running an organization versus somebody who has not but has all good skills?
Lived
How has that
experience
helped?
in running an organization.
Yes.
Well, I think lived experience is arguably probably always better in some ways. At least that's been, my own personal experience. I have learned a lot over the course of my life. A lot of people associated with me would say the hard way, but it was that hard way lived experience. And I was fortunate. I grew up in a home with professional, educated healthcare people, right? My dad was a hospital administrator, my mom was a nurse, and I sort of grew up in and around healthcare organizations and worked in those settings in high school and in college and after college. And then I went to KU and then on to UMKC and got an MBA. I spent a significant time, a decade or so, at Cerner here locally in Kansas City and some other organizations professionally. And so for me personally, I draw on those experiences without question. And the things that I learned, in those environments and in those settings and in those experiences. And I think that has helped me in my role here at Welcome House. I'll tell you, it was never a role that I, sort of sought to have. Yeah, when I got out of school, I worked in the hospital setting for a little while and managed care setting, but then I kind of went, I shifted to the for-profit side of healthcare, and I never really saw myself working in nonprofit, and I certainly never saw myself working in the field of recovery, and but I will also say, I'm 11 years, I'm almost through with my 11th year professionally here at Welcome House. And, it's been the best, most rewarding decade of work. I almost don't even call it work because I love the organization so much and what it does, that I've had in my lifetime. And I've worked for some great organizations and done some really fun stuff, But Welcome House by far is the most impactful, most meaningful work that I've done. So in that sense, I think lived experience is good because of what the mission is at Welcome House, because of the issue that we're addressing. Our experience has found that if our residents are engaging with others who have been in their situation, so are alcoholics and addicts who have, had the disease destroy their lives, had to go through the early sobriety and then shift into the long-term recovery, learning how to live life on life's terms and to do so sober. If they're engaging with those folks versus somebody who's credentialed or licensed, learned a lot about it in a classroom setting or through professional work, but never lived it, it's the folks who lived it who seem to be the most effective. And so I think that also filters all the way up. I think my disease and the experiences of my life in sort of that area also helped me be a better executive or senior leader with this organization, because I mean it's hard. I can never remove the mission and the perspective of the meaningfulness of the mission from anything that I do, because of its impact on me personally. So, it's a great question, and hopefully that was the answer that
No,
makes sense to you.
it was a
Yeah.
great answer. So,
Yeah.
so we could place set for everybody. Residents come to you pretty much of your own volition, of their
Yeah.
own volition. So when they walk into Welcome House, and we'll go towards that new facility,
Yeah.
what happens? How long can someone stay there? And then what happens once they leave?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the first thing that we need to talk about is the population that we're serving. So the typical Welcome House resident, is homeless or in between permanent addresses, somewhere between 80 or 90%. 75 to 80% of them have been incarcerated previously. 75 to 80% of them are unemployed. 75 to 80% of them have income levels for the immediate year prior to them coming to Welcome House of less than $10,000. So imagine that. Imagine existing in this world for a year and making less than $10,000 in that 12-month period. So I think it's important to understand those are the residents that are voluntarily seeking Welcome House's assistance, not through any direct. We certainly have referral partners, but we're not part of any closed loop sort of referral process or reimbursement model per se for admissions.
Gotcha.
People are just voluntarily coming and saying, "Hey, I need help." And so if a guy's unemployed, but they meet those, minimum low barrier requirements that we talked about earlier, we bring them into the program and they can work for us 20 hours a week for the first 2 weeks of their experience at Welcome House. It's not for cash or any
Right.
amount of money that's exchanged. It's for room and board and program participation credit. And during that period of time, we're also helping them find permanent employment or full-time employment, not a career, just a permanent full-time job that will allow them to earn and then contribute their skin in the game, right? So this whole concept of sobriety with dignity that you mentioned in your opening and that we talk about here is that our program expects men to contribute on their own behalf. That the way that we, let me, how do I say this? The way that that is expressed in our program is the requirement to find and maintain full-time employment, and then to pay what works out to be a daily program fee of $27 right now. To give you some perspective, back when I got sober at Welcome House in 2012, it was $20 a day. So in that period of time, and with the new facility, that skin in the game that residents are expected to contribute, or that daily program fee, has only gone up by $7. So, but that's a requirement of our program. And we also don't like and recommend against family and loved ones, or anybody else, other agencies even, to a point, paying a person's program fees for them. The whole concept here at Welcome House, and what you hear us say often, is that, look, we're going to do as much as we possibly can to help support you in your recovery, but we're not going to do more for you than you're willing to do for you. Do you see what I mean? That
Yes.
concept of, and I'll use myself as another example in this situation. I'm in February, I will have 13 years sober, which is amazing when I even hear me say those words. Okay.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. But what's really amazing is, and what I'm so grateful for, were the guys at the Welcome House that encouraged me to take ownership and responsibility for my own recovery. The guys that said, look, you've got a disease, those are the breaks. I've got it too. You can have a wonderful life. You can live the happiest, most productive life possible for you, but you've got to take ownership and responsibility for your own recovery. Right? That doesn't mean, be moving all the puzzle pieces on the game board, right? It doesn't mean you're in control. What it means is you have to be willing to be accountable and responsible to you, to do the things that are going to help you have the life that you want. There's no more, I'm the victim. If you had my life, you'd be an alcoholic and addict too. It's their fault, her fault, his fault. All of that stuff has to fall by the wayside, and somebody has to say, hey, look, I want my life to be different. Welcome House, thank you so much for helping me to do that. Help me understand what I need to do, and I'll do it. And so that's really the core, or sort of foundation underneath the model, which is, we're going to help anybody that comes to us and says sincerely, I want your help, I want to change my life, but we're going to expect that person to work as hard as we do on their own recovery.
And there's skin in the game.
And there's skin in the game. That's right.
And
there's skin in the game.
The men are living there. They have a roof, I assume, food.
3 meals a day. 3 meals a day, room and board, all of the program and intervention components in there. We have a core program that's designed around a 9-month stay. Has three different levels. You start out in a probationary or assessment phase for the first 30 days. And really what's happening there is, we're assessing a person's willingness and compliance. So if somebody comes to us sort of in that situation that I've already described, and they say, look, I'm willing to do everything. I'm, desperate. I just want to change my life. And we say, great, come on in. But then, when we tell them they need to be in the 8:00 morning recovery meeting and they're not there, and we've got to go wake them up, you get sort of that one mulligan, if you will. Look, we get it. Tomorrow morning, this can't happen. So at 8:00, you need to be down in the recovery meeting. Okay. If they say, hey, help me, I'm willing to do anything. And we say, okay, great. Come on in. We're going to do that. Tomorrow morning at 9, come down, and we're going to have something for you to do around the house. And 9:00 comes and they don't show up. We got to go find them. And, so really, in that scenario, we're trying to understand the motivations of the person there, right? Do they really want our help, and do they really want to change their lives, or are they simply taking advantage of a safe place to sleep, a warm place to sleep, the showers, 3 good meals, and they're doing that because of the way we allow access into the program, right? We give them the benefit of the doubt on the front end, and then we help them, show us whether or not they're sincere. But once a person completes that first 30 days, they sit through a clinical assessment as directed by our staff that looks at, and there are some other assessments that happen earlier than this in that 30 days, but the most significant is the one, sort of at the end of probation, and that looks at physical health, mental health, and substance use disorder. It's built into our electronic program record, and that helps identify co-occurring issues or other issues that may be going on with that person. And if they're willing to follow our referral guidelines and our assessment process, and they want to, they can then opt to stay in our program. It's a wonderful, again, it's a wonderful combination in my mind, the way I look at it. It's compassion, it's understanding, it's
Mm-hmm.
lived experience, but it also comes with expectation from the part of the person who's being served, right? And you'll hear this a lot. It sounds horrible when I say it, but as an alcoholic or an addict, having been in that place, we will take advantage of any help in active addiction and active alcoholism. Anything somebody's willing to give us, do for us, manage for us, handle for us, um, anything that doesn't require me to be responsible and accountable, I will willingly accept that. I will keep it, it's the point at which I have to become accountable and responsible where there's opportunity for real change, and so Welcome House is trying to instill that, create that scenario uh, in the lives of the men that we serve, and it's also, people are aware of enablement, the term enablement. What people
Right.
don't seem to understand, it's the most difficult issue when it comes to family and loved ones, because you almost have to say to that family member, look, stop doing all of these things for this person, because all you're doing is enabling them to continue in active disease. You got to step back, or if you're going to help them, make sure that everything that you do comes with the expectation of them being accountable or responsible, or some level of follow through, that you're willing to stand on a hard line and say, look, I'm going to do this
Right.
for you one last time, but here's what I expect. And if you don't do that, I'm not going to answer the phone anymore. You're going to have to figure this out on your own. There's nothing else I can do. And, for so many families, loved ones, and friends, that is the most difficult thing to do. It is the most difficult thing to do, because it goes counter to the grain, right? It just
Right.
doesn't feel like it's the right
Right. We have just a few minutes left. I can't believe it. We've been having such a great
thing.
conversation. Tell
I've been
us.
talking way too much.
No, 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 no. Tell us quickly about the new facility and what it's going to allow you to do.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, thank you so much. We have, so a year ago, we moved into our brand new facility, 28,000 square feet. The Welcome House of old, we're in the same location, first of all, at 27th and Paseo. The building that we were in there was almost 120 years old.
Oh
It
my gosh.
lacked the adequate space we needed as our program has grown and developed, um, and sort of had to meet demand, quite frankly, because of the issue of substance use disorder. We were in that location since 1986, so 30 some years. The building was 120 years old, falling apart. So We set out a little bit pre-pandemic, a little bit before the pandemic. We did a lot of design work and planning, all of the studies that you would, feasibility studies, et cetera, that you would imagine, and then started down the path of a $10 million capital campaign. The pandemic hit. We paused it for like 3 months, picked it back up. Unfortunately, due to supply chain issues and inflation and sort of pandemic related issues and sort of pandemic hangover, if you will, we experienced a 40% increase in what we could have done pre-pandemic to the reality of what it was post-pandemic. So our goal, our capital campaign shifted from 10 million to $15 million, but we went ahead with the project. We secured the funding. We got wonderful partners in this community like Security Bank, like Advent Health. We had a great contractor, Forge Construction, and great architect, HD Architecture, Greg Heibarger. And so everybody came together. And this community has been just amazing. We're not completely finished with the funding. We've got about $1 million left of net new funding that we need to do. And of course, we need to continue to collect on pledges and commitments that went over multiple years. But we're in the new facility. We've recently finished what was the second phase of the project, which was the demolition of the old building and the construction of our parking lot and external amenities. Mm-hmm. I'm operating right now at 100 beds. I've got flexibility built into the design. I go from about 94 beds. That's how I can configure to upwards of 106 or 10, somewhere like that, depending on how I utilize the furniture that we have deployed. We've got meeting spaces, socialization spaces, outside spaces, a quarter court basketball court and pickleball court, family day room areas where, mm-hmm. Men can hang out with their girlfriends, wives, kids. We got a spirituality space and a chapel, wonderful brand new commercial kitchen. It's just truly, and I think the neatest thing about it really is that having lived in and been in the old facility and operated our program there, we just had a really good sense of what we needed. And the most amazing thing about the new building is just how well it fits our processes, workflows, and the needs of our residents, and then of course, the amazing community that came out and just said, absolutely, we love what you're doing. We want to get behind your mission. I can't imagine my life today had I not been able to encounter Welcome House when I did. I get goosebumps as I'm saying it to you right now. You can't see them, but I can feel them. And it's, I've been sober from the first time I walked through the Welcome House door. Okay. And I can't imagine a future in Kansas City without the Welcome House being available to other men like me that find themselves in that situation and their families. I've got 4 children. I'm married to a beautiful woman. I just have this wonderful family. I'm a great, son. I've got my parents, the relationship, like everything about my life has been transformed from that broken, hopelessly addicted person. And the community has gotten behind us and ensured that the Welcome House is going to be here and relevant for at least the next 50 years of men, for men and their families who might need us. So, and it's just an amazing thing. We welcome anybody to come down and see us. We love showing the place off. Yeah, it's amazing.
What's the best place to go to get more information on what you do? I know you need volunteers and all of that. Where should people go?
Absolutely. WelcomeHouseKC.org.
Perfect. Amazing work. We could talk for hours. You're doing such great stuff, and
Thank you.
so lucky that our community has Welcome House. So thank you for spending this time with us to share all the great things that you all are doing to make Kansas City and individual lives of people who live here so much
Thank
better.
you so much, Ruth.
And thank you for joining us for Casey Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice. We're produced by Charitable Communications, which is also a nonprofit. This Casey Cares segment was brought to you by the Ewing Marion Foundation, www.kaufman.org. To be a guest on Casey Cares, go to our website, caseycaresonline.org, and spread the love. You'll find us on Facebook and Twitter at Casey Cares Radio, and Instagram at Casey Cares Online. And don't forget, Saturday morning, connect us at 8 a.m. on ESPN, 10 a.m. and 94.5 FM. Thanks.